The Con Alumni Network is dedicated to the ongoing support of experienced and successful New York City public school principals and former Con Fellows. These events are designed to provide a network for experienced principals and a place to be heard. They're also designed to address our principals' concerns and interests and to have all participants walk out knowing more than when they walked in. So those are our goals for tonight, having people get heard and to walk out knowing more than when you walked in. The Con Alumni Network is made possible by the hard work and dedication of our alumni, the Con Fellows Program, and Teachers College. And I just want you to see a little bit about our program.
First, I received a phone call that I was nominated to be part of the program, and I immediately became very interested because, one, I am a graduate of Teachers College, Columbia University, so I knew that any program that would be associated with Teachers College had to be good. Also, I felt very honored and quite intrigued about the idea of this Con Fellows program that honored distinguished principals.
I'd been a principal for 4 years. I set up my own school, so the first 3 years I was incredibly busy running around putting a school in place. And I began to feel a need to meet with other colleagues and really to take the work to the next level. So I wanted to be in a network of thoughtful, progressive people, and I really wanted to engage some new ideas.
My leadership style is one of shared vision. I try to share my vision with the staff and empower my staff to bring their ideas to the table. But that always doesn't come off. They still kind of look to me for the answers. So I'm looking forward to working with other people on how they empower their staff to share answers, to share the vision, and to give feedback. You know, whether positive feedback about my own leadership style or things that my staff think I can improve on.
There are different kinds of relationships in education. We have relationships with our superintendents, our students, our teachers, but we don't have enough relationships with our fellow colleagues. And this, I think, is a key part of the Con Fellows, is making sure that principals are connecting with other principals.
Then there was the culminating activity. Every Con Fellow presented his or her individual learning plan. And so we walked away from that experience having more than 20 wonderful products that were written. And I felt that this was really a very powerful part of the overall program.
Using the distributed leadership approach that we learned in the training have been very important steps in making sure that no student in my school falls through the crack, because each teacher is personally accountable for each child in our school. To give you an example of the results, I received recognition from the State Education Department for being one of the high schools in the city and throughout the state of New York that is more effectively closing the educational gap between Blacks, Hispanics, white, and Asian.
The whole experience was very meaningful and very, very practical. I love the idea of having a cohort of exemplary principals to network with. I felt that the professional development activities that were provided by the Con program was really quite unique and very different from the traditional type of professional development activities that most principals engage in.
Walking through the halls at Columbia took me back a few years. We won't say how many years, but it took me back a few years, and it, just gave me a sense of, wow, I'm here to learn again.
Fantastic. It is a fantastic program.
I now know my school much better, and I know how to take the leadership to the next level.
I feel very blessed to be part of this experience, and I think it's going to be something that I'm going to take with me for the rest of my life. It's not often that you can be part of such a program.
So the purpose of today's event is to hear about what the thinking is in the mayor's office, specifically about K-12 public education in New York City, and also to share the perspectives of experienced and successful principals from all across the city, representing all schools and all school models. Our greatest hope is that this will be a discussion of consequence and a part of a larger dialogue between people who share a common goal: to educate the children, the citizens of New York City. So our agenda for this evening is as follows. From 5 to 5:15, we were hoping that we are relying on the Deputy Mayor, Dennis Walcott, to share with us some of the progress that's been made over the last 8 years and to identify the areas of growth and plans for the future of education in New York City. And then from 5:30 to 6:15 or so, we were looking to have an opportunity for questions and answers with the panel, which is comprised of Con alumni and audience members. And then from 6:20 to 7, we're hoping that you'll stay and join us to continue the conversation during the reception time. So our panelists for tonight include Christina Titonis, who has been the principal of the Hellenic Classical Charter School in Park Slope since 2007. Prior to this position, she was the principal of PS 170, the Lexington School in Bay Ridge, Brooklyn, for 5 years. Of her many achievements, Christina is proud to be leading a school that's received recognition from the New York State Education Department as a high-performing, gap-closing school. Also in 2006, she was awarded the NYSESLAT Closing the Achievement Gap School. Excuse me, that was in 2005. Then next to Christina, we have Barbara Freeman. She is currently the principal of Don Pedro Albizu Campos Elementary School, otherwise known as PS 161. That's here in New York City, in central Harlem. During her 10-year tenure at PS 161, she's led in implementing the school reform initiatives, which resulted in her school's removal from the New York State SIR list. And anybody who's unfamiliar with that, that is School Under Registration Review. In 2001, she was named Principal of the Year for her outstanding work transforming a low-performing school by the New York City, Board of Education. And she was also the recipient of the National School Change Award. Bill Moore, is the principal of Robert Goddard High School in Queens. Since 2001, he was the principal of Robert Goddard Middle School before it became and was approved for a high school, which was actually last year. We got to work with him as he was undergoing that change. MS 202 was selected as a pilot school for the I Teach, I Learn one-to-one laptop program, as well as the CHAMPS sports program. Bill was also instrumental in utilizing the digital television studio housed at MS 202 to regularly appear on cable network channel QP-TV. And he has over 30 years of experience right here in New York City. And Jeff Scheer is a retired principal from Francis Lewis High School, which is located in Fresh Meadow, Queens. If you're unfamiliar with this school, it is about 4,000 students? 4,500. 4,500, okay. Right. It's hard to get a handle on the number when it's that big. Prior to being appointed principal in 2003, he served as AP of Pupil Personnel Services, guidance counselor, and coach at Francis Lewis, so his roots run deep. Previously, he directed the highly regarded High School College Continuum Project in 12 high schools, and he's also served on a multitude of professional school improvement panels. Now, our moderator for this evening is Richard Lee Colvin. He's the director of the Hechinger Institute on Education and the Media here at Teachers College. He joined the Institute in 2002, and he became director in 2003 after many years of writing about education for newspapers in California, including the LA Times, where he was the lead education writer for 8 years. He's also written widely for publications including the Washington Post, Education Week, the Chronicle of Higher Education, and the Los Angeles Times Magazine. He's been twice awarded Media Fellow at the Hoover Institute at Stanford University, and he's also won many national awards for his writing. And in 2000 to 2001, he was the Knight Wallace Fellow at the University of Michigan. So we're in good hands. And our featured and esteemed guest for this evening is Deputy Mayor for Education and Community Development, Dennis Walcott. Dennis is responsible for so many offices. I will just list a few. The Department of Education and the Department of Youth and Community Development, the Mayor's Office of Adult Education, the City University of New York, as well as I said, many other essential offices to the running of this city. He's also responsible for maintaining a liaison with community-based organizations citywide and coordinating policies concerning youth programs and adult education. Two things that really concern us in the Conn Fellows program. Prior to working in City Hall, Walcott was the president and chief executive officer of the New York Urban League, which is the social services organization and local affiliate of the National Urban League. Please join me in welcoming Dennis Walcott.
Thank you very much, and good afternoon or early good evening to all of you. It's a pleasure to be here, and I have to really apologize beforehand for my raspy voice, but I will continue with my remarks, and you'll understand that it may fade in and out at times, so I do apologize. First, to the Conn Fellows and to all of you, it's really a pleasure and an honor to be here to present. And a lot of you I really do know. I've had a variety of different interactions, either going directly to your school, participating in programs, either talking on the phone, or the one person that I will single out, and you will understand why I only single out one person, is because he is the former principal of my alma mater, and that's Francis Lewis High School, and that's Jeff. And the only reason I tease Jeff about the size of his school, because every time I go back either to speak at graduation or just to visit the school, I always hear the complaints, and I said, hey, listen, when I went to Francis Lewis High School, there were 4,100 students. We were on triple session. When I was a sophomore, I started at 7 o'clock in the morning and didn't end until 20 after 5, and on and on and on. So everything that Jeff talks about and Jeff's successors and predecessors I've heard before. The one story, Jeff, I will tell you that I don't think I've ever said this publicly before. In addition to it being my alma mater, Francis Lewis is also the alma mater of my youngest daughter as well, and Jeff knows that. And my daughter was in the JROTC program, but the story I don't think I've ever shared publicly was one day, Dana, my daughter, was a sophomore at Francis Lewis, and she came home and she said, Dad, do you know a woman named so-and-so? I said, well, it vaguely rings a bell. And Dana said to me, he said, Dad, did you go out with her when you were in high school? And I said, no, why? She said, because she found out my last name was Walcott, and all of a sudden my grades went straight down. And did you do something to her when you were in high school? I said, no, I really didn't, Dana. But then I guess Dana was able to deal with whatever the issue was, but it wasn't directly connected to me. So, Jeff, Francis Lewis has a special meaning to me, because to me it has produced so many great students. In addition to that, so many students, I think a record number of students, who've gone on to the West Point Academy as a result of the outstanding JROTC program. So my compliments to all of you for being here and all that you do in our school system. And it really feels like I'm preaching to the choir. So, I have my prepared remarks, and folks who work on my staff work hard to prepare my remarks, and then they know I'm always bad when I get before an audience because I never really look at my prepared remarks. But at the same time, I do want to follow the outline, but also preach to the choir as well. One of the things that you should know, that all of you who are in the New York City public school system, that if you were a city, we would be the 9th largest city in the country, the 9th largest city. We have roughly 140,000 employees who are part of the New York City public school system. We have close to 1 million students who are part of the New York City public school system. When I was going to school way back when, we always talked about You know, we always had 1,200 schools. Now we can honestly say we have 1,500 schools that are part of the New York City public school system. We have over 170 languages that are part of the system. We have 8,000 school buses a day, and we serve over, how many meals do we serve a day? Anyone? How many meals do we serve a day? 860,000 meals a day. And that's breakfast and lunch. I mean, that is a monumental undertaking. And as a result of that, it is a very complex structure. And I just want to take you a step back in history, because a lot of times we tend to romanticize the past. And while a lot of you have been in the system a number of years, I know in my former life, I visited you when I was at the New York Urban League, or I was a member of the New York City Board of Education. I think we've made tremendous strides over the last 7 years. But just to take you a step back, if you were an elementary or middle school principal, you were not appointed the way the people are appointed now. You had to go through the local school boards. The local school boards had superintendents. Superintendents basically did the hiring and the firing. And a lot of you were subjected to the personal whims and fantasies and political pressure sometimes of that local school district. We had 32 different mini school systems throughout the city, 32 different policies, 32 different ways of doing business, and some of the districts were doing extremely well, and some of the districts were doing poorly, and some of the districts were extremely corrupt as well. Back in 1996, Rudy Crew, the then chancellor, appointed me as a trustee up in Central Harlem at District 5 School Board to take over the District 5 board for a period of a year and a couple of months, because the board had run into a number of problems. We constantly had problems in the old system. And then we had a separate high school division back then with a high school superintendent, and it was just a structure that was meant for dysfunction, where people really did not communicate with each other, and as a result of that, the children suffered. The children suffered for a variety of reasons, but the children also suffered because a lot of times, a lot of the attention, a lot of the policies, especially at the board where I was a board member, were focused on the infighting and who was in charge, and then people saying that no one was in charge. Graduation rates at that point were below 50%, and we lost thousands and thousands of students. Jeff, when I was at Lewis, I started Lewis in 1965, and it was also in a very exciting period of time in our history as well. Decentralization was taking place in 1968. We had the Vietnam War, we had teacher strikes, and all the issues that Jeff will remember, and I will remember, a lot of you in this room may not have personally experienced, and that really contributed to the school system of that time. So you had some shining stars, but you also had some areas where there was total chaos and corruption. As a result of a lot of the changes we put in place over the last 7 years, we've been able to show steady improvement in the graduation rates, where now, no matter if you look at it from the state level or the city level, our graduation rates are up by 22%. If you take a look at 8th grade math proficiency, it's up 30 points to 60%. If you take a look at 8th grade reading proficiency over the last 7 years, it's up 13 points to 43%. If you look at 4th grade math, it's up almost 9 points to 61%. If you take a look at 4th grade reading, that's up 23 points to 80%. Our graduation rate, again, is going up, and it's going up on the backs of our Black and Latino students, while still woefully low in comparison to their white and Asian counterparts. We are starting to close the achievement gap. The achievement gap has closed 16% for Black students and 15% for Latino students on math and reading tests, and 3 times more students over the last 7 years are taking the PSATs, including 45% increase among Black and Latino students. AP test takers are up significantly as well. They're up 39%, including 60% increase in Latino test takers and 58% increase in the number of AP test takers who are Black. Students passing the APs are up as well by 32%, including a 24% increase for Latino students and a 43% increase for Black students. What we've also done, as some of you know, especially some of you who are in the newer buildings, we put in place a couple of years ago our highest school construction budget than ever before, a $13.1 billion school construction program where we were going to build 63,000 new classroom seats, and we're well on the way of doing doing that, we've been able to identify over 50,000 or completed seats to the tune of 50,000 over the last 5 years as well. So over the last 7 years, we've tried to put in place a system of major reform where we put more money into the school system, roughly $345 million. We've downsized the bureaucracy over the last 5 to 6 years, and as a result of that investment, we're showing the game. But what we've also done, and to me this is the beauty, and especially talking to people who are principals and assistant principals, is tried very hard to give you more power than ever before. Power in who you hire, who you're able to terminate, and not be subjected to the union rules that were in place before. We've been able to give you a workforce of teachers who have received a 43% increase over the last 5 to 6 years. We've been able to increase principal salaries as well. And for the principals in the room, I think the deal goes until 2010. Correct, 2010, and as a result of that, we also have bonuses built in to a number of contracts as well. For years, we had gone without a contract with the principals, and now we go into the next year. So we've worked very hard to make sure that we both streamline the bureaucracy, but also make sure we focus on accountability and standards and show improvement. Now, I want to just take a couple of seconds because obviously there have been a number of conversations around the 15,000 layoff of teachers over the last month or so, and the mayor identified that in his preliminary budget, and then you've heard some talk about the stimulus package that's been put in place and how that may ameliorate some of those layoffs, if not all of those layoffs. But again, the stimulus package is something that's still in process and in discussion, and as I understand it right now, the governor and Senator Schumer are holding a press conference to, I think, discuss the stimulus package and its implications for New York State and New York City. So we'll have more information about the stimulus, but education will do extremely well. But even with the stimulus money, you and we will still face challenges because as a result of what's happening on Wall Street, what's happening in the economy, there's fewer dollars coming into the city. And as a result of downturn in the Wall Street market, we're seeing revenues decline at a rapid rate, and that will impact the city budget itself. So even though the mayor has talked about that we should be able to avoid layoffs, there still isn't a guarantee that all layoffs will be avoided. And again, in the mayor's January preliminary budget, he talked about the budget being balanced not solely on the back of the stimulus package, but also concessions from the unions as well. So, as we discussed this afternoon, the issues that we face in the future, I think the challenges as leaders, the challenges from City Hall is to make sure that we're able to maximize the revenue, minimize the revenue within the bureaucracy, and maximize the revenue directly in schools. Making sure that we empower you as principals and the leaders of the school to have the budgets that allow you to do the things, but also be honest and direct with you and give you the information that the budgets may not be as large as before. And you may lecture me and tell me later on that what I'm saying is just from the ivory tower of City Hall. But one of the things we've also tried to do is give you more decision-making and discretion in the utilization of your budget as well, making sure that we don't micromanage you, even though we do have certain edicts in place that we expect to see the schools to have as far as curriculum, parent coordinators, and other items. But at the same time, for the majority of the budget, we expect the principals to manage their budget based on their individuals' needs. As we move forward, I just can't stress enough the importance of mayoral control. As a result of control, I think we've been able to take bold risks. We've been able to address issues of major challenges as far as taking on charter schools, the issue of promotion of students who are not prepared for the next grade, issues as far as how we offer options for students and their parents, such as single-sex schools, theme-based schools, small high schools, large schools, taking a look at how we deal with, I think, creative curriculum to attract students to stay in schools, how we've developed an office of multiple pathways for those students who are overage and undercredited, and making sure that we have the programs available for those students to bring them back in as well. And I think keep the emphasis in focusing on standards in our system. And if we go back to what was before, or if we go back to a system where people will say, we believe in mayoral control with the appropriate but attached, as they say it, and try to justify the but. I think we undermine all the good, and we have a potential of risking the future of generations of our children and making sure we keep the emphasis on education and not politics and bureaucracy. With that being said, I think I've reached my time limit. I want to thank you for the opportunity to present and then sit down and be part of the panel to address questions. Thank you very much and have a good afternoon.
I got an email from somebody who has been monitoring the stimulus package very closely, and I think this information is current. It may inform the discussion. So, as I understand it, the current amount for education in the stimulus package is $105 billion, which is down from the original $142 billion, which was in the original House version. $40 billion for states to distribute, the state government to distribute directly to school districts. There's about $8 billion in money that the state could use for school construction if it so chose. $13 billion for Title I, $12 billion for special education. So if that is useful to you and informs any commentary after this. It's really hard for anybody who's trying to make a budget, whether it's a mayor or a homeowner or anybody, including a principal. So that's a real stress that's out there right now. Of course, in addition, principals have tremendous amount of stress, budget cuts and overcrowding, and your administration has really, I think, been very much consistent with the themes going on nationally about how we improve instruction, which is to say, you've empowering principals, as you said. You're putting a lot of pressure and a lot of rewards, actually, for raising test scores and improving achievement. I'm curious, well, two questions. One is, what do you think is do you most attribute the gains that you spoke about to? What is the biggest cause?
I don't know if you can attribute it to one cause itself. I think it's a combination of causes. I think what we're seeing with some of the gains that the curriculums that have been put in place, or the curriculum that's been put in place, basically is now taking hold. And as a result of that, I think you have both the administration of the schools as well as the teachers of the school who are better grounded in those type of areas that they need to focus on. I think that's one. I think having information available and having real-time information to get back through ARIS, even though ARIS is still getting up to gear, I think that's helpful as well. I think accountability, I think measuring the school performance and competition is extremely important. I think we're all competitive as far as knowing how our neighbors are doing. And so while some people have poo-pooed it, I think letter grades are extremely important. And, letter grades, as it takes hold, allows people to see how well or not well a school is doing. And I think that's an important factor. I think the constant, it's a weird thing. Someone said to me, you never really hear about the cranes that don't fall. You only hear about the crane that actually falls. You never hear about all the hard work that's going on in the school and taking place in the school on part of the principals, the teachers, the parent coordinators, and the entire staff, including parents. And as a result of that, I think you have people who are just focused on education itself and not getting distracted with local school board politics and Board of Ed politics, and freeing people up. Even if we're battling at times with the unions, most of the times the schools have been immune from that. And I think also we have been able to live in a boom time economy prior to this year. And as a result of that, you have an infusion of a tremendous amount of money that's gone into schools, and then by giving the principals, I think the flexibility and also the accountability tied to that as well, to use the dollars as they see fit, allows them to focus the attention, the emphasis to the school. And then we've had, for the most part, record hiring of teachers as well. And so even with the space restrictions, people have been able to hire. So I don't know if you can really single it out. I think it's all come together. And I think also, transformation takes a long period of time. And people have done many studies about transformation. And transformation truly takes anywhere from 5 to 10 year period of time to take hold within a system. And with a system this large, with a system that had an old dysfunctional system in place for 38 years, I think we've shown a lot of positive changes in a short 7 year period of time. And I think continuity of leadership. and I don't want to underplay that as well. No matter how people may feel one way or other about leadership, I think leadership is extremely important to have a consistent message, and that consistent message is going out and grounded on a regular basis, and that allows the principals to do their job. And I think contract helps as well. Having a contract with the principals in place finally, and having that taken care of, having a 43% increase with teachers over a period of time, where, as you know, the top teacher can now earn over $100,000. I think all of that matters, and it's coming together.
So you're taking a systemic approach, but you also seem to put the principal at the center of that by empowering principal, giving them more information, giving them more responsibility, and holding them accountable. So the principal is really a key figure,
I think
correct?
we've been consistent over the last 7 years in saying that we firmly believe in principal leadership. It's all about leadership of the building and making sure you empower. I mean, take a step back when we were developing parent coordinators. I know sometimes at a high school, a parent coordinator may not be as effective as an elementary or middle school, but the battle that was being waged in the creation of the parent coordinator is that people wanted a committee to basically hire the parent coordinators. And we said no, that parent coordinator is a staff person of that particular building, and the principal should be the one responsible. I think that's an example of empowering the principal to make sure she or he has control of their building, has control of their budget, can allocate their budget. They work with the school leadership team in developing the CEP, but at the same time, that principal is held accountable. And I think with the contract with the CSA, it both rewards and then it also builds in the ability of accountability to the principals if they're not performing at their school. And I think attaching that letter grade to show the competition, and as that takes hold more and more, you will see that. And I think, you know, all these things are part of an entire system. And so system reform, I think, is extremely important. But I think what happens in the school, the pedagogy of a school, the principal understanding that and having continuity of leadership and having the ability to hire his or her staff allows that pedagogy to be driven directly to the student, and then having the communication. And once we open up the family portal and having parents get real-time information and changing the dynamic of future parent-teacher conferences where they're getting all the information. And while the challenge has been making sure that parents are getting information and you engage parents on a regular basis so they know exactly the progress or lack thereof of their child or children, I think, again, the principal is that person and that key person making sure that information is driven home.
One last question I want to ask before turning it over to the panel. So I know that the mayor and the chancellor have talked a lot with Bill Ucci at UCLA and this idea of empowering principals, and you just spoke about all of the principles that Professor Ucci talks about. One of the things that Bill doesn't talk about very much is the principal as an instructional leader, and a lot of the roles that you've given to the principal are very big ones. So how do you see instructional leadership being part of the principal's job, and how do you see the mayor's office supporting principals as instructional leaders?
Well, I think instruction is a key part of the principal's job description as I view it and as the mayor views it. I mean, one of the things that I think is truly key with the mayor is that the mayor is a believer in having a CEO be knowledgeable, in charge, and having the ability to measure the results, but also making sure that that principal being that CEO is also the instructional leader. And we have a variety of different type of leadership styles, but a principal should be grounded in knowing the issues of his school, both from a instructional basis as well as from a business basis, and then surrounding him or herself with the staff to support that. So we all should be able to analyze our strengths and weaknesses and build in through the school support organizations how we want that professional development to take place with our staff and our school personnel. And as a result of that, the principal, I think, has a key job in making sure she or he surrounds themselves with both the staff and the support organization to allow them to carry out the mission of instruction.
Thank you.
Given the economic conditions, will the mayor's office continue to support small schools?
Yes, I mean, we believe in small schools, like hopefully a number of you in this room who lead small schools, and we're opening new schools as we speak. I mean, it's interesting. I think the economy of small schools, people say it costs more, you're investing more into it, but I think the return on investment is even greater than the upfront investment, because small schools, not compared to all large schools, but small schools have outpaced some of the large schools that they've replaced. And we have documented the ability of a number of these small schools that have been in failing large high schools before getting higher graduation rates than their older high schools that were there before. So, yeah, I mean, we will continue to invest. I think you'll see the pace slowing down only because of the sheer size of the number of schools that we have right now, but we don't want to draw a correlation to the economy and the slowing down of small school development. We'll continue to push on charter schools. We'll continue to push on single-sex schools. And I'm a big believer, and the mayor's a big believer, and the chancellor's a big believer in options. In people, I didn't have these options when I was growing up. I had Francis Lewis, and I was basically told to go to Francis Lewis. And that was the option I had. And I don't regret it, Jeff, but at the same time, that was basically where I was tracked to go to Francis Lewis High School, the greatest experience in my lifetime. But now we have the ability of having options available, and I think the more options you develop for the students and the parents, the greater success rate will be. But also, you'll see where the demand will be as well. And as a result of a competitive society, you will see those schools are not in demand. And then we'd have to assess why they're not in demand. And as a result of information both from the surveys, the learning environment surveys, as well as analyzing the ratio of applications to seats available, determinations will have to be made.
Thank you so much.
Barbara?
Good evening, Deputy Mayor.
Well, thank you very much, Ms. Principal.
If education is to remain a priority, what would the Mayor's office suggest that principals economize on under the current budgetary constraints?
Yeah, it's a tough question and answer, but let me try to take a stab at that because, I mean, all of us have to take a look at our budgets, whether it's home or in business, and find out where we economize in these tough times. And I don't think we should micromanage from City Hall. But I think you have to take a look at staffing patterns. You have to take a look at collaborative teaching and whether that will help, and I think other issues on how you manage budgets. I mean, some schools have very large budgets and some don't. And I think it's no one prescription as far as where one economizes, but I mean, you're going to take a look at ancillary programs to see other areas where you shave, but I wouldn't pretend to be able to tell you where to do it. All I can tell you is that it's going to be necessary, and I think as a leader of your school, you're going to have to find where you make that adjustment, and whether you go with an outside custodian's contract, does that save you money? And I'm not suggesting that's it. Whether you take a look at the number of staff that you have in the office, take a look at the number of APs, or take a look at the teacher ratio, and that in the good times, you were able to reduce the percentage to such a low level as far as the number of students to teachers in classrooms, or increased, the lower size classes. You're going to have to take a look at that and make that decision. But I think it's a reality. And, part of it is one of the frustrating things in my job, and I think I'm a softie at times, even though I've gotten a lot tougher as the years have gone along, are the calls I receive, whether it's through the Department of Education or the New York City Housing Authority, where I also have as part of my portfolio, and people who unfortunately may be part of the layoffs. Mm-hmm. And people calling and advocating on that person's behalf, and having the ability to say no. It's just a challenge. My son-in-law just got, my future son-in-law, he's not my son-in-law yet. My future son-in-law just got laid off from his job on Tuesday. It's just a sad fact of the economy, and I think the principals have to look at their budget to see where there are those economies of scale. Where's the school at? Because I know I've been to your school. I just don't remember the street.
You have been to my
school.
Which
street?
On Amsterdam at 134.
Okay, sure.
So
in fact, I was just there last year speaking to a group of students. I do remember that, yeah. Okay.
So any recipe for what they should cut isn't forthcoming. So, Bill.
In response to that, I think, to be fair, we'll give out, the general budgets itself and make recommendations, but at the same time, I don't think we should micromanage. What is unique at her school may not apply to his school. And I think it'd be wrong for us to do that. Now, we'll probably give some general recommendations in areas, but at the same time, people are going to have to look at their own budgets. And I think our challenge, and this is a challenge based on, I think one of you touched on it earlier, is with the shifting budget picture and what it means, and also the declining economy. And what it means, when you have the Dow lose, what, 2 days ago, 370 points, and you go below 8,000, the revenues are going to be less and less. And making sure we get information out to the principals as quickly as possible so that principals will know how to make decisions and not stretch them along, unfortunately, like we may have to at times. So.
Thanks. Bill?
Dennis, thank you for being here. We really appreciate this. And I want to thank all of the people in the audience that were able to come out tonight. I know it is difficult and very time-consuming, but it is rather important that we find out about some of the issues that we're dealing with this evening. And I do have to say on behalf of most principals, I believe, that we do appreciate your work on empowering principals to make their own decisions, because it is correct. Jeff's school of 4,000 plus and my school of 135 have very big differences in where we need to spend our money, but his budget does have much more leeway than mine does. Oh, you do, come on. Oh, you did. So, that being said, I want to ask you something that affects many of us in the room in the way the CSA bonuses are now distributed to principals and APs. It appears to have been changed to schools with large ESL populations. Can you make any comment on this? And does this reflect a shifting in the priority in the mayor's office?
Now I have to go to my notes. Let me double check that because I'm not as up to date on that. And I think, let me just check one thing here. I don't have an honest answer for you.
That's no problem.
Yeah, I really don't.
That's okay.
I'm
You can
missing
get back to us.
Yeah, let me get back to you on that because I'm not up to date on that one. So.
Okay.
All right.
Next.
I'm being looked at like I have it here. So while you're talking, I'll double check to see what my notes say.
Tell them what page.
Yeah, tell me what number. Okay, whatever she just said. Go ahead.
Okay.
Yeah.
Some people have expressed a concern about the lack of supervision of principals from Central. Oh, that's yours? I'm sorry. I just went up one. Take a new one. What is the vision of the mayor's office regarding the balance of power and freedom of action between the DOE and individual school leaders?
Say the first part of your question.
Sure. Some people have expressed a concern about the lack of supervision of principals from Central. Basically, superintendents don't really visit the schools anymore.
Yeah, one of the things, fascinating, you should bring it up from that angle. I mean, one of the things that's been part of the hearings that have been taking place over the last couple of weeks has been the role of the superintendent. And then we're factoring a lot of that in. And so we're listening to the assembly hearing process right now on how if we are going to change the role of the superintendent in dealing directly with the schools and the district themselves. And so don't have an honest answer, not because I can't find it this time, but I don't have an answer because I think it's part of our entire decision making and when we talk to the assembly as far as what the next steps will be. Because one of the biggest concerns raised is that superintendents are no longer just specifically on a district, they cross district lines and they don't have the direct hiring, firing, or supervisory capacity of dealing with the local schools, especially the elementary and the middle schools. So again, we're analyzing that and we'll probably come out with some recommendations after the assembly hearings are finished.
Thank you.
Jeff, the work you're doing now has raised this question for you quite a bit. Do you want to elaborate on that with a bit, or no?
Okay, if I do.
Be my guest.
Okay. We also saw this as an opportunity to give you some feedback and some information from the field, and both as principal for a while, longtime employee of the DOE, Board of Ed before that, and now working as a part-time consultant for the LSO, Learning Support Organization. I have some thoughts that I'd like to share with you that I think are shared by many people. Nobody here, because you are all exemplary principals. We know that based on the fact that you come to the CON program, that you have proven track records, and those of you who are not members of CON, the fact that you're here tonight indicates a real keen interest in what's going on, and you see yourselves as lifelong learners, which is critically important. First of all, Dennis, thanks for coming and answering my request.
Now I'm scared even more
Okay.
so.
But I want to expound a little bit on what Bill started with. I think that basically most people, including myself, do a little better when we know that not only are we accountable 2 years or 3 years from now, but we're accountable day by day. And in some of my visits to schools and speaking to new principals, people who've moved to different positions, the absence of ongoing supervision, and I mean it in a positive way. I'm not talking about what they used to call snoopervision or things like, but ongoing supervision and support of being able to say to a principal, you know, I walked through the halls today and I noticed that half the teachers were sitting behind their desk, all right? A simple example from last week, it was Professional Development Day. Under the previous system, we would have been asked to produce an agenda for professional development. There was a very good possibility that the superintendent or one of the reps of the superintendent would have come in the building and monitored, given feedback, hopefully been very much impressed. You can throw back the response, not you personally, well, the data will tell. But we're not manufacturing shirts where we could say, well, a year from now, if they're still on the counter in Macy's, then we know that we have to change what we did. There is this an ongoing operation day by day. We're talking about young people. And to build again on what Bill was asking, I think there's really a need for that supervisory role, for that superintendent to be there. Not in a, not.
Let's ask the audience.
Yeah, well, wait, let me, hold. I said that, I'm speaking for myself, all right? I'm speaking for myself here. That, and I could say to you, I speak for myself as what I would say a successful principal, that as I look around, I think people need feedback. I can say to you that when data, for example, on the new math regent or the previous math A, that 40 answers correct out of 85 gives a student a 65, and then a school can say that they have, you know, met the state standard. That's only the beginning. That's only part of it. The tone of each building, the overall progress of what's going on, the quality of the teaching is all extremely important. And I have a concern, a personal concern, that leaving many new people out there sort of hanging leads to the possibility in the future of some failures, maybe some great successes, without the opportunity to intervene before the data comes in a year or 2 or 3 years down the line.
Let me just pick out one word from what you said, Jeff, which I think may be where, Dennis, you might want to jump in on. Jeff was using the word supervision, but he also used the word support.
Right.
And he talked about young principals not having, the support. So maybe the way to come at it, I don't want to put words in your mouth, but what is the mayor doing, would the mayor do to support young principals to help them become the best that they can be?
Giving a support organization. I mean, that's what he's done. That's the beauty of it. And the data speaks for itself.
Dennis, you want to respond, and then we'll go to the audience?
Telling me about bulletin boards, because when they stopped telling me about bulletin boards, my scores went up 50%.
Yeah, you know, it's a fascinating, and I'm not going to stand in the middle of all of you in regards to the discussion, but I mean, that response captures, I think, the feeling of the mayor and the chancellor and even myself in finding that right balance to give you the support organizations, allowing the principals to choose a support organization that they feel best fits their particular need, and then budgeting appropriately as far as the type of supports, because as all of you know better than I do with the various support organizations, even if you choose one, you can choose a different package based on the need of that particular school. I remember the days back when we were rightfully criticized about the micromanaging of the schools, and people wanted to be freed. They said, let us do our job. And part of our goal was to evolve the system to a point to both give the principals enough dollars to choose the support organization, but also how they want to use those dollars. And then have the data to be the measuring tool of making sure there is an apple-to-apple or peer-to-peer comparison for that particular school. So then when we get back to you, or get back to you, or get back to you, we're drawing comparisons to like peers, one, and then looking at the information. And as we get more grounded and more sophisticated, then you'll have even more sophisticated information to share. And I think that's extremely important. It's weird, you know, I've always said this, and I never say this as hype, that, you know, one of the things when people ask me, what do I want to do next when I leave this job, one of the things I always think about is becoming a principal. I know it's a tough job, but also I want to be a principal of one of the most challenging schools. And as a new principal, if I would choose to do that, I want a support there, but at the same time, I want the flexibility to allow me to be the leader of my building. And I know there's a middle ground to what I heard from the audience and what I hear Jeff saying as well, in that I want to be able to draw on. I'll give you a perfect example, and you guys, again, know this better than I do. When I go to a lot of your schools, and I'm always in schools, and I talk to new principals, I talk to principals who've been there for a long period of time, and the newer principal said, well, you know, I need this support organization because I'm new. I really don't know. I don't want to be an empowerment school at this point because I really need to have the guidance. I need to draw on that information from someone. And they know that. And then our goal is to make sure that we give them the feedback. And I'm hearing an assumption that hopefully is not totally true, in that the superintendents are not doing anything. I mean, the superintendents are playing a role as well. But I think it is that middle road, that balance of giving you as principals, the leaders of your building, that flexibility, giving you the dollars, but also choosing the support organizations to best meet your needs. And when you fail, or when you're doing poorly in an interim set and not at an evaluation point, we have that interim assessment and information getting out to you with the folks who are staffed with analyzing the data and sharing that data with you and breaking that information down and working through the inquiry teams on how to move to that next level. So quite frankly, I think we've evolved to a system of trying to find that right balance of both support without micromanaging and having the resources attached to that.
Questions?
And I'm actually concerned about the talk going around by politicians that principals shouldn't have that discretion. I happen to think that is a really leading idea for a change in this system, and I just hope it continues.
If I can respond to that now, I always warn you when I'm about to get into trouble, so I'm giving you a warning. I may be getting into trouble for a second. So Dawn over there, who handles press relations, will have the job of managing that. But, you know, let's remember something from before. When we had superintendents in place, and this is not in all cases, and I'm not going to stereotype, a lot of them there were as a result of political connections. And when I talked to a number of leaders from before who are still in the system, they had to go through a maze and a dance and who they knew to get their principalship. Not saying it was always, but in a lot of cases. And instead of being based on standards and results, a lot of times people were based on who they knew. And trying to free principals up to be in charge of their buildings and be both the instructional as well as the managers of their schools, we feel is extremely important. And the other piece, and it's not built into the questions, but I'll raise it myself, in that part of the struggle, and I think part of accountability both here at City Hall as well as at DOE and in the schools, is the managing of space. And it's a constant tug with all of you in the audience, in that we've had a number of schools that truly are underutilized, and they're underutilized under capacity for a host of different reasons, and how we maximize those buildings as well. And at the same time realize that a principal is in charge of their school, and we have to make sure as the system evolves, we make sure they're the appropriate building councils and coordination as we have multiple schools within a building to be managing the building in a better way. But at the same time, we are firm believers in giving the principal as much flexibility as possible so that she or he has the results, and when the results aren't there, we can provide the supports to hopefully build them up in a higher level, to a higher level.
With 565s, and how are we going to support that?
So, let me respond two ways, because when I have a pro in a room who knows more than me, I am a person who knows his limitations. And when I have Dr. King here, who is the Chief Academic Officer, I think it's only appropriate for Sabrina to come up when you talk about, the issues or the challenges of the future. But from a both management and functional perspective, I want to take a second to talk about, the surveys and the input. I mean, the system only gets better with valued input from the people who are out there doing the direct services themselves. And I think part of our goal is to make sure that we hear back from people. And I know Joel goes out on a regular basis. I know Marcia, Eric, Sabrina's out there. I mean, we're out there listening. Now, this happens to be a great group to hear opinions from and to help influence decisions in the future. And we would look forward to structured opportunities to do that. I mean, one of the things, even though you have prepared questions for me, this was a very unprepared type of interaction with each other. I didn't know where you guys want to go with your particular questions, and I'm going to try to answer them honestly. And I know Joel's the same way. I know Marcia's the same way. I know Sabrina's the same way. And so any opportunity to make the system better, and the surveys, and then I'm going to keep quiet so Sabrina can respond, both with the learning environment surveys, with the principal surveys. I mean, the surveys are not just out there to be out there. They're out there to influence decision making and to analyze data as far as how we become a better system. And I think the learning environment surveys, as you know, is the largest survey second to the census that's administered, and is to drive information and do analysis on how a school is doing and how we are doing as a system. But with the specific, I'll defer to Sabrina.
Good evening, good evening. And I just wanted to echo that we really do need these structured conversations, and the comment earlier about the vision for instruction, I think, is so critical. And I, as the person that's leading the Office of Curriculum and Professional Development, very much want to hear the kind of guidance that you believe schools would benefit from in terms of instruction so that we can better support your work. We have developed the Campaign for Middle School Success with the high school regents' requirements in mind, believing that we need to start early and that we need to start 5th and 6th grade with a college readiness agenda. And we are actually in the process now of building upon our very beginning work at the middle school level, developing a full secondary agenda. And we need your best thinking in terms of that. We are concerned about the regents, and we know that we need to develop more support and more programs so that students can catch up and be able to engage in grade level and above work when they get to high school. And we have data that shows that so many of our students are not graduating from middle school able to engage in high school work. So this is our current work, and we very much will get back in touch with you so that we can really get your best thinking as we're developing this full agenda.
Sabrina, remind me and tell me if I'm imagining this. Don't you and the team at DOE convene regular meetings with principals on a variety of topics and have focus groups and other type of discussions around topics of importance in the field?
The way that we've worked is we convene groups around various curriculum areas. We've certainly had an advisory committee to support our Campaign for Middle School Success development, and we will convene principals around this emerging secondary agenda, really speaking to the issues that you raised.
Well, and just one addition, Dr. Lyles, so you know, Dennis does go to the Middle School Principal Association meetings, and she does meet with us at our request.
And I think I was at the Elementary School Principal Association that was held out in Queens, if I'm not mistaken.
Brooklyn Marriott.
No, that was the luncheon, and they had a professional development session, I think, in it was out in Queens. I mean, both from the DOE side as well as from City Hall. I mean, we are actively engaged in listening and trying to make the system better. But who's to say we can't do it better? And that's our goal, to always do it better.
Well, you just, in the last hour, I think, exemplified what you just said, that you're here, you took a lot of hard questions, and you said earlier, Dennis, that you felt like you were taking a test, and at least from my perspective, I think you passed. So,
thank you.
Why don't we give Dennis
We'll see what
this round
happens
of
in the New York
applause.
Post the next day.